Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn. And of course, we couldn't do it without the master of ceremonies, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the master of the Spine Buster, the Hall of Famer, Double A, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you, man?
Better. Doing better. How about you?
Man, happier than a puppy with two Peters, because we're doing something fun today. We're watching an old school WCW Saturday Night from January 16th, 1993. Won't you join us at home? Fire it up right now. You're going to be glad you did. It's the WWE Network. Click on In Ring, scroll down until you see WCW, and click on Saturday Night. When you get there, you want to select 1993 at the top, and then you'll find January 16th, 1993. That's where we want to be. And today's episode is 1 hour and 23 minutes long. And this is going to be fun, man. I like watching wrestling with you. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too.
So our main man, Stan, has got us lined up for the watch along as well. If you'd like to see video of Arn and I watching the video along with you, that's available right now over at adfreeshows.com. Here's how this will work. You're going to go to all zeros on your counter, and hopefully you'll press mute on the actual program and just listen to Arn and myself. We'll give you some alternate commentary, if you will. I'll give you a bit of a countdown. I'll say 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3, or whatever you want, and play, and then we'll go from there. Arn, why don't you do the countdown? You want to give us a countdown?
Yeah, of course.
Here we go.
I feel like a big shot now.
Well, here's the thing. You've probably counted to 3 a time or two.
No, I heard the count going down as I was staring at the ceiling. I can tell you all about that.
Well, I'm ready to try to put you over here today and let you do the count.
Okay, let's do it. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
Play.
Coming up next on WCW Saturday Night, the final match in the U.S. title contenders tournament will feature friends and former teammates Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and the natural Dustin Rhodes. Bad blood that began in last week's main event will continue tonight when Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff battles Cactus Jack. An exclusive amateur video will shed new light on Erik Watts' controversial arrest after an altercation with Arn Anderson. All this and more action next on WCW Saturday Night.
Who was doing the voiceovers in that era for y'all? Do you know who that was?
I wasn't paying attention.
Well, here we see Larry Zbyszko on the left, Bill Watts on the right. I got to tell you, I always imagined Bill Watts was being a much taller guy. I'm not saying that Larry and JR aren't big fellas, but the way you hear people talk about Bill Watts, I just expected him to be like 6'7" or something.
Well, his persona made him 6'7".
Right.
And that's the way he wanted it.
So he's addressing right now that Rick Rude hasn't been able to defend the title because he's been injured. So they're going to go ahead and strip him. So tonight, instead of crowning a number 1 contender for the United States title, whoever wins in these finals today with Ricky Steamboat and Dustin Rhodes, they become the actual United States champion. And then he's going to address the trouble that his son Erik has gotten in. In storyline here, Erik has been arrested, and you heard the announcer at the top of the show say it was a controversial arrest. So he's going to say, "Oh, you'll see the footage later today, and I'll let you decide for yourself." How do you think Bill did as like a on-camera GM or authority figure, if you will?
I think he came across as legitimate. Bill Watts was always the guy, he was the boss. He was the owner of his own company. So when he spoke, things usually happened just like he had told you they were going to happen. So he had some credibility.
Of course, we're watching a show that was taped at Center Stage back on January 11th. It's airing on January 16th. So just 5 days ahead of time. So this is a weeknight here in Atlanta. And there he is, Barry Windham, sporting the goatee, flying Brian Pillman with the Bengal tights. And how about Steve Austin with a head full of hair and a bowl cut to boot?
Oh, Austin kills me.
It's weird in hindsight seeing him with hair, isn't it?
Yeah, really. A little bit. I mean, you could just tell this guy, we talked about on another show, when a guy comes through the curtain, does he feel like he belongs? That guy knew he belonged, and you could just see it. Talking about confidence.
An old friend of yours recently, was talking to me about Barry Windham, and he said he didn't chase it chased him.
Oh yeah. Barry Windham, 6'6", that long blonde hair, summertime, he'd get tanned, be riding around in that white sports car of his, that Porsche. Brother, he turned heads. That's for damn sure.
Look at what we've got here. On one side, Barry Windham, Brian Pillman, and Steve Austin. And across the ring, Brad Armstrong, Too Cold Scorpio, and Mark Marrow. Man, you've got 5 great wrestlers and Mark Marrow in this match.
Oh.
Come on. That's funny, Arn.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, we've talked about him before, and I was telling Eric Bischoff, he might be one of the biggest fumbles of all time as far as a gimmick. And Eric was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, this guy's a legitimate Golden Gloves badass boxer. And in real life, he's a hell of a salesman. He sold Rena Marrow, AKA Sable, on being his wife. He's in tremendous shape. He's tan as all get out. And these days he's a public speaker going around giving inspirational speeches to kids. So he can talk, he can work. He's got a great look. He can sell. And oh, by the way, he'll beat the shit out of you because he's a Golden Gloves boxer. So I got an idea. Let's make him prance around, put on eye makeup." What? If he just would have been Mark Marrow, that shit would have been way more over, wouldn't it?
Well, here's the problem. That everyone was seeing the success that Vince was having creating characters, right?
Right.
They're kicking ass, selling out everywhere. The business is, thriving. So someone in a position wanted to start sticking characters on guys because they thought that's what the industry was heading towards.
Right.
You have to be smart enough to know some of these guys, they don't need anything.
Right.
And I think it was it was follow Vince. He seems to have the formula. Let's just follow him and, everything should follow suit.
I think as legend has it, Dusty was really fond of the Johnny B. Bad character, and there's no doubt Marrow pulled it off, but I just can't help but think in hindsight, he could have been anything else and maybe had a better run.
Yeah. I mean, look at the body on the guy. I mean,
yeah.
Handsome, looks like $1 million.
Yeah. He looks like a celebrity. Every now and again, you see a guy and you're like, I don't know who that is, but he's somebody. And Mark Marrow had that look.
Absolutely. It's
interesting too. You got Brad Armstrong. I think most people who listen to this show know what high regard you hold him in. And so do most of the locker room that he shared time with. But for whatever reason, his personality never really came through the camera, but we hear behind the scenes, man, he was the life of the party.
Brad was, the energy of the locker room. He would just dart in the door, walk around, mess with everybody, dart right back out the door. You wouldn't see him for a while. He'd come. I don't think Brad ever sat down at a show, maybe just long enough to put his boots on. He just had that infectious energy, and he was so polished, such a great performer. And the big issue with Brad was, I don't think once that red light comes on, Conrad, it was like somebody stuck a knife in them and let the air out of them. It was the kiss of death for a lot of careers. That's the reason you had to recognize if you had a talent. Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey, Bobby Eaton were not great talkers. So what did they do? They put Cornette with them that was a great talker,
Right.
Which means they didn't have to talk. And they shouldn't have talked very often. Mistakes were made along the way with some guys, giving them gimmicks that were so hokey that they weren't going to get over. It just pissed the audience off. And a lot of those were baby faces.
Let's talk about where we are here. This is coming to us from Center Stage. As a fan, I always loved Center Stage. I thought it looked great. I haven't been able to see wrestling yet there, but I will one of these days. But our old pal Tony Schiavone says, Conrad, the building was a piece of shit. What say you?
Yeah, it was. It was dirty in the back. There wasn't enough locker room space. But it was a big enough arena that you could fit enough people, and we're back to that. See how dark it is?
Yep.
That however many fans that was, 300 or whatever it may be. Not sure what it would hold, but they would get loud when something was on that they liked, because they weren't fearful of, hey, they're looking at me. I'm embarrassed. They're looking at me. Didn't have that issue. So it served its purpose.
I freaking love that neon sign you see hung on the back wall of WCW Saturday Night. Where do you think that wound up? You think Jackie Crockett maybe still has that somewhere?
It's entirely possible. Jackie's got a bunch of condos at Myrtle Beach, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or he did. I think he owns the entire complex. I bet you he's got that sign hung out front.
I'm really surprised you don't have it hung over your bed, just as like a steel sign. The light's on. That means it's spine buster time or something.
No, when the sun goes down, the Anderson residence is off limits.
There you go. I want to mention these tapings at Saturday Night. This isn't like, let's go out and tape one show here at Center Stage. Usually you would tape several episodes, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Tell me about a typical taping day at Center Stage. What would a typical day there look like, as far as what time you get in, what all you do, what time you get out of there?
We would have to be there about, I want to say about 4:00. We would start taping about 6:30, and depending on how many shows we're going to do, you may get out of there at 10:30 at night, maybe.
In this era, you're still living in Charlotte. Are you staying in a hotel, or are you just driving back?
Well, if we're there just for one day, I will usually drive back.
Yeah.
If we're staying over a couple of times, we stay out by the airport at the Marriott, because the Gold's Gym was out there. It was very close, and the Marriott was just, we'd stayed there for so long, and the people, we all knew the bellman and everybody, and the room service people would keep room service open late for us, and a lot of perks to being platinum American Express, especially when you got 5 platinum American Express guys standing there going, hey, would you mind keeping room service open a little bit longer?
Right.
Usually carried a little stroke. You know about that.
Hey, so let's talk about what your schedule was in this era. Gainesville, Georgia, the Georgia Mountain Center. You're there doing TV tapings on January 5th. And then the next day you're in Montgomery, January 6th, 1993. There is a crew that runs on January 8th in Arkansas, as well as in Monroe, Louisiana, the next day on the 9th. And then on the 10th, they're in New Orleans. You're not on any of that, but you are here on the 11th, and you would continue with them because you're just a couple of days away from the Clash of the Champions. That's going to air on the 13th, or it'll be taped on the 13th rather. I know, I guess that was live. Either way though, I guess my question is, why were you on certain shows and not all? Is this a situation where they're giving you time off, you're requesting time off, or did you have a legitimate injury here that you needed a little bit of heal up time?
I'm sure I was nursing an injury, and television was one thing. House shows were something different. You know, you had plenty of talent that I wouldn't be missed on a house show. Probably give me a few days to heal up before a big show.
I just found it interesting that you're really kind of hard to find for the first few months of the year. So maybe that's what part of the whole gas station thing was, to sort of sell the injury here. You see Barry Windham cutting a promo. How was Barry on promos in your opinion?
Not bad. Not bad at all, be honest with you. I think Barry was more comfortable as a heel, but he was such a great baby face too. I mean, there was no holes in Barry's work.
How'd you like Larry Zbyszko as a color guy here?
I love Larry. Larry is just look at him. I'm sitting here mad at him and I ain't heard a word he said. I mean, he is just that indignant, just world-class smart ass. But Larry, you know, Larry had a way of cutting through the mustard and, you know, telling you what was what, because he brought ring experience.
Let's listen to this Vader promo. You got to hear this.
First, we have a date with destiny. SuperBrawl III, the game becomes reality. Vader invites you to my White Castle of Fear for a Super Brawl party. The challenge is presented for you to play a game. I know you like a good time. I know you like challenges. And I know that you like living on the edge. So take my dare. Accept my invitation. Come to the White Castle of Fear and play Vader's game.
The White Castle of Fear promo. Now this isn't as bad as it gets. There's one with a helicopter and it goes on from there. And of course, this is all the brainchild of Sharon Sadello. And there you see Vader with the world title, Harley Race in tow. But my goodness, the White Castle of Fear. I mean, was the Burger King of Doom not available? What is this?
No, I got to dig deeper than that. Does it not bother you that the words were not matching up to his mouth?
Oh yeah. The closed captioning here called it the White Castle Affair, which seems like something you and I probably had on a late night after a bunch of drinking.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, it's like he said something and 7 seconds later, here come the sound. Oh, Leon would definitely bring it. That's for sure.
Yeah. These poor guys. I feel really, really bad for this fella here. He's beating up a guy named Tim Dixon. And what's funny is, as I mentioned, I was watching this show earlier and Megan just happened to catch some of these strikes in the corner when he starts going upside his head. And then she saw the power bomb at the end and she just looked at me with her head like cocked to the side, wanting me to reassure that everything was okay. And I was like, no, that's all real. There's no work in that. This is real.
Leon would, he would beat you up pretty good.
Did you ever find yourself in the ring with him and feel like he was taking a liberty and you had to return fire with a live round yourself?
I didn't have that issue with him. You know, it's like anything else. Leon picked the spots. He knew these guys were there to get him over. He knew not to push it, you know, with the top guys, you know. And obviously that doesn't make it right. That's for damn sure. But I don't think he hit, you know, the regular top guys like he did some of the other guys.
It's funny because you look at that and Megan said, how does that not hurt? And I said, oh, it does.
Oh, it does hurt.
Yeah. There's not a way it doesn't. It does.
And as far as fighting him back, I mean, and I'm telling you, Leon would go ahead. He would rattle you and you would hit him back, you know, best you could. And it's just he was so into the thing, I don't think he noticed.
There you see all the other enhancement guys coming out to scrape up their fallen brother, including your man, the Italian Stallion there.
Yes, sir.
Is that cosplay Bobby Eaton right there in front?
I'm not sure who that is.
Teddy Longhair is a stick man talking to Ron Simmons. What'd you think of Teddy on the stick here?
Loved it. I love Teddy, especially with Ron and Butch Doom. That cat right there is all man, buddy. Make no mistake. Ron Simmons.
Let's talk about some news and notes. Meltzer would write, although no contract has been signed at press time, it now appears to be close to a sure thing that Flair will start with WCW, most likely at the SuperBrawl pay-per-view on February 21st in Asheville. I don't believe Flair has received his written release from Titan Sports. However, as reported last week, it appears he and Vince McMahon have split on amicable terms. Apparently the meeting between the two several weeks back wasn't so much McMahon wanting Flair to retire, but explaining how he'd be used, which appears to be mainly work semifinals and third from the top and generally putting younger talent over. And when the time is right, and unlike what was reported here, that time isn't now, he'd be given a front office position. Flair then cut a deal with Bill Shaw of TBS to return as a featured performer, and it does appear to be in a babyface role with a natural feud with Barry Windham and eventually Big Van Vader. So this has got to be great news to you. Your old pal's coming back. We see Erik Watts here talking to Tony Schiavone. Let's track this promo so everyone can hear it, and then we'll talk about Flair coming back, because you don't want to miss what is about to be said here.
Home videotape exactly what happened. I want to get your comments on what happened after we take a look at the videotape, okay?
Well, let's take a look.
Okay, let's take a look at that videotape.
Who's that, Dad?
To set the stage, it's an amateur home video from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Erik Watts is standing outside of a gas station where it's clearly been raining. He's in the passenger seat of a 4-door sedan, and there's a little girl asking for an autograph. It seems like her dad is filming it, and he's getting a very nice autograph and going to pose for what is supposed to be a picture, but dad has a video camera. Pay that no mind. Someone's coming on the scene and things are going to happen. Let's track it.
Hey, Blair. Give him a big kiss, Blair. See, ask him if you can give him a kiss.
Hey, I told you I'd catch your ass out here somewhere. What's your problem? Didn't I tell you? Did I tell you I'd catch you? Did I tell you?
Somebody call the police. Somebody call the police.
I told you what I tell you. Which one? I told you what. Broken my leg.
Here's the police.
The police are on the scene now, and they're taking Erik Watts off of Arn Anderson, who just had his submission applied on the concrete here at the gas station. And we're going to go back and get word from Erik, and I want everyone to hear this.
as you look at that videotape, what was going through your mind at the time?
Well, first of all, thank goodness for videotape so the truth can be seen. What's going through my mind is that Arn Anderson made a point that he'd come at me anywhere, anytime. He wanted to jump on, but sometimes, as you can see here, when you jump on top of someone, you can't always get off. Right. Tony, I don't get paid to fight in the streets. I get paid to fight in the ring. But Arn wanted it a different way. I'm a wrestler and have been a wrestler all my life. Now it's a profession of mine. And let me tell you what, in any street fight or fight in the match, I'm going to get you on the mat. And once I get you on the mat, I'm going to put the STF on. And once I put the STF on, only the ref can pull me off. And in this instance, there's no referees. The only thing that kept him from saving his leg, if it's saved, is the police. Let me tell you what, Arn Anderson, anyone else that wants me, I'm an easy man to find. You can come get me.
That from Erik Watts as we go back to the ring.
Boy, he meant well. Still with me, Arn?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Well, lots to unpack there.
The underlying story between that whole thing was Bill Watts had already decided that Bobby Eaton and myself had, in a time that he was cutting everyone's salary.
Yep.
Cutting them in half. He cutting Bobby's and mine in half too. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, there's no way I'm going to get that money back. So what the next best thing is to get some time off with at least half pay. I'm not going to spend anything to make it. I came up with that angle myself. And as it turned out, because you wanted to get the most out of the angle, I was off 4 months. During that 4 months, Bill Watts became unemployed. I was hoping for something like that to happen. Dusty came back in the booker spot. I started back and everything completely changed. So what I did was I bought myself 4 months off. With that angle, a lot of people said, hey, hokey and in a parking lot and all that stuff. I was just looking for something different. It was definitely different. And the real rib to the whole thing is there was one police officer there who was supposed to make sure that nothing, no one intervened or anything like that. All the other police officers were just driving by and saw the angle going on, but had no knowledge of it. So they were there shooting.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the inside on that deal. And the guy that was trying to pull Erik off of me was a civilian. He was legitimate. He wasn't part of the gig. So, there were some parts of it that were cool, that were legitimate. And I don't know if in a street fight you put a STF on somebody, but that was his hold. That's what we were trying to get over. Bill Watts was happy with it. He thought it was excellent, and it did a lot for his kid, I would imagine, at that particular point in time. Plus, I got the 4 months off. So that's the backstory.
Well, listen, I love the idea of there being some realism to the show and attacking a guy at a gas station. There's been some famous moments like that, back in the Horsemen days when you guys filmed following Dusty and beat him up in the parking lot. That was great. And then you guys recreated it with WCW and the NWO and the Steiner brothers and all that. So I dig all of that, but boy, I think people look back not at what you did in that segment, but just the fact that your dance partner was Erik Watts and sort of groaned. And then you actually get to hear the promo afterwards. Boy, he was trying to rip off Ric Flair's famous line where he says, you're going to find out jumping on is a lot harder than jumping off, or a lot easier than jumping off. And he fumbled the line and a few other things, those stops and starts. And, you recently on an Ask Arn Anything talked about sometimes you can look in a guy's eye and see that he's not confident. He was not confident. How unnatural was this whole process for Erik Watts? To be featured like this, B, to be the boss's son. So you've got heat multiple ways, right?
You want to know the truth? You know, it's really not his fault. He
Yeah.
was brought in as the boss's kid and pushed to the max. You can imagine the look on Rick Rude's face when Watts told him he wanted his kid to beat him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how that conversation went down?
No.
Me, I was just trying to make the most of it. But it's, you know, the reality is that's one of those deals where the fans, the company gets heat with the fans because they don't buy it.
Right.
You know, as elaborate as that was and the intricacies of everybody in the parking lot is beside the point, because at the end of the day, did they believe Erik Watts, the character, was going to have Arn Anderson in a STF in a parking lot screaming bloody murder?
No.
And I'm not sure that they bought that.
I'm sure they didn't. And it's a shame because, as I said, I don't think, you know, Erik was given a fair shake. I mean, it would have been interesting to see how he could have done somewhere else. I know he had a cup of coffee with the WWF, but the business was down then. So much of life and success is just timing, right, Arn? I mean, some of it is just the luck of the timing, right?
It's the most critical component. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
It literally is. It is not a part of it. It's not a big part. It's everything.
And we're seeing a rather forgettable match here after that big segment. It's the Wrecking Crew taking on Keith Cole and Chris Sullivan. Let's talk about Flair, though. Flair's been in the WWF, had a big run, couple title runs, big main event or co-main event, I guess it was, at WrestleMania for the world title with Macho Man. But now he's coming back. Were you in regular communication with him while he was up there? Was he telling you that, hey, I'm coming back, or I'm trying to come back? Or were you guys just sort of living separate lives at this point because you're both on the road all the time?
Yeah, separate lives. I mean, if there was anything important, he would just call home and Beth would call Aaron and they would get a message to me or whatever. I mean, got to remember in those days, everybody didn't have cell phones.
That's right.
So that communication, which we take for granted now, was not available back then.
Here's Dustin Rhodes. He's going to be doing a promo here with Tony Schiavone. Let's take a listen.
Steamboat for the belt later on tonight.
This is it. I've waited a long time for this. The United States Heavyweight Championship tonight. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and myself, very close friends. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I got one thing to tell you. You better be on top of your game because I'm on top of mine, pal.
Okay, and Dustin, good luck to you. And fans, I'll be talking to Ricky Steamboat right here in the stretch room a little bit later on. But when we come back, the SuperBrawl III Control Center on WCW Saturday Night.
So listen, sort of second verse, same as the first. We just talked about Erik Watts and how he had a little bit of heat on him because his dad was pushing him real hard. Your old great close personal friend Jim Hurd told me in our interview over at adfreeshows.com that he felt like Dusty was probably hurting Dustin a little bit too, by pushing him so hard. And in saying that, he put over that Dustin was a great kid and a great wrestler, and he really liked him a lot, but he felt like he didn't do him any favors with some of the other talent when he tried to feature Dustin so prominently. You were there for both. Obviously, Dustin wound up having a much different career than Erik, certainly much more talented in the ring and on the microphone. Not comparing their work, just comparing the similarities to the boss's son here in WCW. Can you talk about that?
And that's the only similarity.
Yeah.
Dustin could work right off the get-go. Dustin could talk right off the get-go. He got it. He knew how to handle himself in the locker room. Very respectful. There's no parallel between him and Erik at all. It definitely hurt Erik the way he was pushed. I think everybody, once they worked with Dustin, saw Dustin's work, it didn't matter that his dad was Dusty. He deserved to be pushed.
No doubt. He's had a tremendous run, and still is. And we're seeing, seeing highlights here of what's been going on with Big Van Vader and Sting and Ron Simmons. And here we see where Sting actually beat Vader in the King of the Cable match. But not too much longer after that, we see Big Van Vader win his world title back from Ron Simmons here. I think this too was in Baltimore. So Ron won it and lost it in Baltimore. Ron's title run was sort of a hallmark of Bill Watts' time in WCW. Prior to this, he had mostly been positioned as a tag team wrestler with Doom. That's the way most fans remember him. Before that, of course, though, he was around even in the waning days of the Crockett era as a singles performer. Were you surprised that Bill wanted to sort of recreate the success he had with Junkyard Dog with Ron Simmons? He certainly had the legitimate athletic background. He had the respect of his peers, a capable in-ring performer, but certainly a paradigm shift to bring a tag team guy up. Oh, and you see some trash coming in there. Fans were not happy that Ron lost. Did that catch you off guard when they decided, hey, we're going with Ron Simmons?
No, I thought it was great. Ron was, he's a guy. I mean, he had the look, he had the credentials, you know, the pedigree, amateur, you know, football, everything, professional football, you name it. I mean, the guy was 600-pound bench presser, for God's sakes, at one point. He had it all. Ron was a good choice.
I mean, he certainly was legitimate. I mean, he had the pedigree for sure. And coming up next, we're going to get an interview with Ricky Steamboat. Of course, he is tag team champions, unified tag team champions. So it's a bit of an interesting story. He's the NWA tag champ and the WCW tag champ, and he's taking on Dustin Rhodes here for the United States Championship. I feel like Steamboat, with all the great success and all the great matches he had here in WCW, he never really got back to the main events like he did in '89 with Flair. But some of his tag matches here were like matches of the year, especially like with you and Larry. Tell us a little bit about why you think that was the case. Is it just he had the right dance partner in Flair in '89, or because he had sort of played hokey pokey a few times over the years and he's in and out? Maybe the promotion just didn't have confidence enough to put the big belt on him again.
I don't think it was intentional. I don't think they looked at Steamboat being wishy-washy.
Right.
You could be in some top shelf tag matches that pretty much like override or overrule or however you want to put it, a main event championship match.
Right.
You know, they're just better. They have a better story. You know, it's a better match. That's, you know, that happens. I think Ricky Steamboat, whether he was on next to last or last, was always considered a main event and a main eventer. And, you know, it immediately elevated his opponent to a higher status as well.
And a testament to how you felt about Ricky as an in-ring performer. You actually told us on an older episode that if you could have wrestled any one guy at, say, your WrestleMania match as a singles competitor, you would have wanted it to be Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah. I just don't think you can go wrong. Ricky was just a guy that just, you had to be in the ring with him to understand how good he really was.
Here's Max Payne here getting the win over an enhancement talent. Any Max Payne stories you can share with us?
He looks like a caveman, don't he?
It's quite the look.
Well, I know that the Nasty Boys had been working with Max, and they were working with him on a pay-per-view, and I don't know who his partner was, but I just remember there being some conversation in the back. I think it was a pay-per-view from Albany, Georgia.
I think it was Foley, and they beat the shit out of each other. Cactus, I mean.
No, this is going to be the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, I thought it was Cactus and Max Payne against the Nasties. Is that not right?
Oh, it could have been. It could have been. But the high spot of the whole thing was Max hit a belly to belly.
Right.
On Knobs. Intentionally did not get him rotated. And if you can picture this, Knobs hit on his stomach and his feet hit over the top of his head.
Wow.
And if Knobs hadn't have been a jellyfish with no muscle whatsoever protecting him, just limber as you could possibly be, it'd have probably killed him. It's the worst bump I've ever seen. Unbelievable. Max kind of let those guys know that night. It scared the shit out of me, you know, that he was, and it was mostly Knobs as usual. It wasn't Sags, but brother, it was nasty looking. I felt bad for Knobs.
That's saying something.
Yes.
We just saw a tremendous interview from Vinnie Vegas. Well, I don't know about tremendous. I say that tongue in cheek. He's addressing Van Hammer, and he's doing his best My Cousin Vinny impression with the accent. It's hard to imagine that Vinnie Vegas, Oz, this is all going to become Diesel and one of the founding members of the NWO. Did you see a big future for him here in 93? I mean, if we're honest, nobody could have ever predicted what he would become, right?
No, not to the degree. And again, we're back to that timing thing.
Right.
Right place, right look, right time. It doesn't matter what had been done before that.
And we're seeing
right push. People forget.
6 days prior to this, we're seeing clips from the main event, and we see Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, helping stretch Cactus Jack out a little bit with a little help from Harley Race. So they're exposing him for the big Vader splash. I got to tell you, man, the Vader stuff, outstanding. Vader and Foley, Vader and Cactus, some of the most brutal matches ever. I know, as somebody who knows these guys personally, and at the time you had to be wondering, what the hell are we doing? But as a fan watching from home, it was one of those times of the show where you may say, okay, I know some of this is, whatever, but that was real. And you said that a lot with those guys, did you not?
Yeah. The key to the whole thing was Cactus didn't care. You beat him, abuse him, hit him with every piece of furniture in the building. It's like the guy just would not stay down. He was just almost to a point of, I mean, you could cripple him, but you couldn't kill him. The guy just would not die. He would not stay down. And that made Leon even more vicious in all the stuff that he did. You know, it was like Cactus built a career on getting slaughtered. It wasn't because all the great offense he had and all the great storytelling. It's just the fact that the man would just take any amount of abuse you could dish out. And at the end of the day, he was probably still the only one left standing.
We should remind everybody that what we just saw a minute ago with Max Payne was his debut. I don't know why that matters, but I just wanted to share that little nugget of information. Let's also talk about where the business is. Wrestling's in the decline here in January of 93, as we see Cactus cutting a great promo. The average attendance from December of 91 for a WCW show was 2,040 people. That's December 91. Now let's fast forward 1 year to December of 92, the month prior to the show we're watching right now. Your average attendance, 930 fans. So it was bad, but it's really bad now. Your average gate in December of 91, $24,480. Your average gate here in December of 92, it's down 65%. It's all the way down to $8,370. TV ratings are down as well, about 15.4%. They were averaging a 2.6. Now they're down to a 2.2. When you hear these numbers, I guess it makes sense why a guy like Bill Watts would come and say, we got to cut your pay in half. It's not what a performer ever wants to hear. He certainly didn't do himself any favors with the locker room. But from the overall business perspective, why do you think business was down? Was it just cyclical? I ask because the WWF has fallen even harder than you guys, percentage wise.
I truly believe the business runs in cycles.
Yep.
You know, every 10 to 15 years, it has to take a dip because let's just face it, it's the same product. You got to get younger, fresher faces, but still, wrestling is pretty much wrestling, and it runs through cycles, and people are going to get not necessarily burn out, but acclimated to the point of it becomes part of their viewing, and it's free to go out and spend a couple $300 when you can get all that programming for free. You know, sometimes you have to make that decision too. And I just, no, if I had the answer to that, I could probably call my own shots as far as, what I would get paid to fix it. But no one's really going to know the cycles that what it runs, when it runs and all that stuff. But the business just goes up and down. It's just like a year ago, a year and a half ago, things started to flame up again. And for a long time, for 10 years, 15 years prior to that, it's only really one game in town.
We're seeing footage here from Smoky Mountain. They had a bit of a working relationship at the time with Jim Cornette and his outfit, Smoky Mountain. Were you surprised that Watts was open and receptive to this?
No, because he saw Jimmy, when he worked for him was a draw.
Right.
Jim Cornette's, he's a guy that drew money, and he had worked for Watts and drawn a lot of money. So having a relationship with Jimmy, I'm sure, trot up Watts' alley, because they have similar thought processes where the business is concerned.
Here he is, the 38-time Rookie of the Year, Buff Bagwell, and he's going to be wrestling a very young Chris Benoit. I think a lot of our listeners probably don't even remember Benoit being here in 93, but as the story goes, you actually saw him and helped put in a good word. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was just over in, I got booked for 3 weeks over in Japan. WCW had a working relationship, and I went over, and there was Dane and Eddie, and although I had heard of them, and Chris Benoit, they were over there working as independents, and I had heard of the guys, but I'd never really seen them work, and I saw what those three were capable of, and came back from the tour, asked for a meeting with Erik, and just said, Erik, you got to hire these three guys. They're game changers. And he trusted me and believed me, and hired them, and man, they made an impact right away.
So let's talk about Bagwell for a minute. He's a guy who is going to become one of the great heels as Buff Bagwell. Here he's Marcus Alexander Bagwell. What was your early impressions of another Georgia boy with a good look trying to make his way in WCW here in 93?
My first question was, how did Furlan Husky get in the wrestling business? That was the hairdo, and that was my nickname for him, Furlan. No, he's a good looking kid. I mean, you look at it, but it's almost like, for that time, it's almost too pretty.
Wow.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's like one of those deals. I think having a guy like Benoit in there to pretty much bring out the best in you never hurts.
That's right.
So this is one of those matchups that, as we'll see as it develops, I'm sure both guys benefited from.
The match here actually gets 2.5 stars in the Observer. They have some interesting gear here. What say you?
What's interesting about it?
I mean, how would you describe what Marcus Alexander Bagwell's wearing here? It looks like he's got Swamp Thing fringe and his name down the side. I don't know. And meanwhile, Arn was wearing Zubaz earlier. It looks like Benoit's wearing Zubaz here, but they're actually wrestling tights.
Gear, a man's gear is probably not, I'm not the right guy to ask about that.
What, with all your creativity of red or black or white with just AA on it? What do you mean?
Yeah, but it's just plain wrestling tights. This is what, it's like, this was around the time that guys' gear started to get a little more elaborate.
Did anybody ever come to you over the years and say, Arn, this plain trunks and boot shit ain't going to get it. We need you to put on these pink python boots and these neon tights.
Yeah, no, there was that conversation, it was right before they put me with the stud stable. Jim Barnett had came. There was someone else, whoever was in charge above Jim Barnett. And they were talking about different guys and stuff. And I guess I had just been me. It was back to that, I've been here too long thing. And, his look hasn't changed or anything like that. And, the word came down that I needed to change some stuff up if I was going to stay. So, hey, I went through a period when they put me with the stud stable of wearing a black leather vest. I don't know if you recall that.
I do.
Just for a few times, just anything to give them what they wanted. And I tried to switch the look up. At the end of the day, as I'm sitting here right now, and I didn't fight it. I just didn't jump on board with both feet. As we're sitting here filming the show right now, Conrad, I'm probably more well received than I was at any point during my career. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I am appreciated more. And I never did change from wrestling tights and boots and a pair of knee pads. I mean, there was a couple of times that I tried to mix it up a little bit, but at the end of the day, you are who you are. And I just, I never saw a need to have any elaborate gear.
No, I'm not arguing that at all. I mean, clearly what you were doing was working, and so is this match. This is much better than I expected it to. I wanted to mention, Meltzer did a write-up about your gas station angle. He said, that angle with Erik Watts and Arn Anderson, where Watts put Anderson in the STF at the gas station, was pretty bad. It was a great idea, but it involved the wrong people. Actually, just the wrong person. Watts was booed heavily at every arena he appeared in this past week. It just doesn't work. The public just isn't going to buy him, and each attempt to change that fact just makes things more pathetic. It's time to give up on this experiment and either take him off television and have him learn at the B shows, or send him to Oregon or Japan, which his father's stigma won't prove to be his undoing. Even though Anderson was clearly the heel, the angle somehow got him even more over as a babyface. Sort of sums up what you were saying earlier. It was just not going to work because
it's a force feed.
Yeah.
And the audience is smart enough, they spit it out. The idea, it was the right idea. And if I'd have did that same thing with a different baby face, could have got, who knows how much mileage, Do
you think Chris Benoit, because he's not going to stick here. He's going to wind up leaving. He came in June of 92. And I think he finishes up not too long after SuperBrawl. No, I guess it's Slamboree. Either way, he goes back to Japan and then winds up having a run in ECW in 94 and 95. And then he comes back to WCW in 95. Was this just Bill Watts? Maybe he didn't get guys like Benoit.
Probably so. Anybody that didn't stay, it was because Bill didn't want them. It was clear that Dr. Death, and Gordy were more than welcome, and, Steiner's more than welcome. He had a type that was his type, and it was tough guys, big, rugged, tough guys. And I don't think Benoit at that particular point in time would have been big enough for Watts.
We're seeing a segment here on the show called WCW Up Close. is Tony Schiavone not in front of a live crowd. There's a locker room set here, and we've got Steve Austin and Brian Pillman and a couple of windbreakers on what looks like a bench in a locker room, just doing a sit down interview. And they're essentially just cutting promos to the camera, but it was a different look and feel. What do you think of this experiment, the up close thing that Schiavone was trying to do?
Well, yeah. And I'd love to hear what they're saying to see if it worked. The most important thing is, did everybody buy what he said?
Right.
More important than the setting.
It's interesting where they're experimenting with different things. Like for years and years, I was used to seeing Tony Schiavone run the quote unquote control center. But when we just did the SuperBrawl control center, it's Jim Ross, and the stand up that we all grew up with on TBS was, Tony Schiavone. Here now, though, it was Larry Zbyszko and Jim Ross. It just feels like there's a lot of moving parts here in WCW. There's some political unrest, perhaps not only amongst the boys, but amongst the other on-air talent as well.
Well, I'm telling you, the single biggest sabotaging of the company, in my mind, the biggest negative they could have ever done is when everybody's money got cut.
Yeah.
They jerked the catering for TV, which is the most petty thing you'll ever imagine. It went from having a decent catering, nothing that elaborate, grilled chicken breasts, whatever it was, salad, maybe a couple vegetables, to just literally a box lunch. Now, these are professional athletes. You expect them to be there all day. You got to feed these guys.
Right.
And when he cut everybody's money in half, man, it absolutely took the air right out of the company. I've never seen guys so down in my life.
Pretty famous story of how he wanted to cut Brian Pillman's contract. And I believe as the story goes, he said something like, well, hey, if you don't take the pay cut, I'm just going to job you out every night. And supposedly Pillman said something like, great, I look forward to being the highest paid jobber in the business. Do you remember hearing that story?
100% happened. I heard it secondhand, but yes, it happened.
I mean, you got to wonder, like, what were they even thinking with ultimatums like that?
Well, it was a time that how many places were there to go?
Right.
The mentality would have been, hey, listen, it's still more money than they're qualified to make anywhere else in the natural world, right? Half is it's still a lot more they're going to make in any other job that they're qualified to. I can hear that conversation happening.
But you take issue with that line of thinking.
Yeah, because guys had worked, busted their ass for years, decades to get in a position to make a nice living, and to take it from them just because you can. Because other than creating revenue and figuring out what to do in a leadership role to where we're drawing more money, earning more money, hey, let's bring in someone that knows, about marketing, like, Vince has.
Right.
Let's get some money coming from that side. Other than cut everything, hell, let's don't cut everything. Let's expand. Figure out some other ways to, bring some revenue in. And it just, for a guy that had worked, his whole career to get up to a nice living and have guaranteed money and be able to plan their life, to suddenly have it 50% cut, unbelievable. It just destroys you. You just feel like shit on the bottom of somebody's shoe, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm sure Bill Watts is trying to serve two masters. On the one hand, I'm sure he's being sort of rode hard about, hey, this company's never turned a profit. You've got to get, some of your expenses under control. At the same time, though, this is a television company and they're not paying for the programming, but all of the production expenses, come their way. So the creative accounting has always been an issue with Turner. Nobody will ever really know how much the bottom line really was. But as a small business owner, I can attest to the fact that if you're trying to affect the bottom line, you can do it one of two ways. Either A, grow more business, or B, cut expenses. But you've got to either have a bigger top line gross, or you've got to cut some of those expenses. And when you start cutting expenses, it can't help but be negative. You're going to hurt people's feelings. They're going to be demoralized, and you might ruin some long-term relationships when people just lose their faith and confidence and trust in you. So he had to make some tough decisions, but I even myself find myself scratching my head. Like, how does he come to a guy like you and Bobby Eaton and say, you guys got to take a pay cut? Oh, by the way, here's Erik Watts. We're going to sign him and put him under contract. And, oh, we're going to debut Max Payne. It feels like if you really were in a spot where you're trying to save money, maybe you don't need to tinker with as many of these social experiments that you're hiring, and preserve the pay of the guys who are actually selling the tickets.
Here was the conversation. And this says it all. He got me and Bobby in the room, and he said, let me just put it to you guys straight as I can. You guys are the best team in the company, probably in the world. And he said, but the problem is you guys have been here too long.
Wow.
So we're the best he has, but we've been there too long. So he says, you might want to go, somewhere else for a while. And I went, well, to be honest with you, Bill, there's nowhere to go. And he goes, yeah, that's probably true too. He says, I can keep you, but I'm going to have to cut your money in half. So for me, I immediately went into family mode and went, okay, well, I'm not going to make a rash decision. Just say yes right now. And so we accepted.
Oh, so you did accept right then. You said yes, right then.
Right then. And I said, well, when we left, Bobby went, and Bobby accepted too. And he said, Bobby wasn't somebody that they used all the time anyway. So he's doing the math to where he's still going to be okay. So that's when I started the cogs turning about the Erik angle, figuring out a way to get off with pay.
I love that you just revealed it was a grand scheme. I'll put over his kid, and then I can take a break and get paid to chill at the house for a little bit while I recover and hopefully ride this thing out.
And it's exactly what it was. And make that, if you're only making half, but you're not leaving your house, that's a lot better than nothing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So that was the plan. It worked. And once that 2 years that they extended us at half pay was gone, I renegotiated to get my money back up.
I love you for being so transparent. Oh, and that's when I pitched, hey, let me put your son over. Oh, he hurt me. I got to go home.
Yeah. Hey, I was screaming like this is a 4-month angle if I ever saw one.
Oh my gosh. Look, we're seeing a really good match here with Cactus Jack and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Of course, by this point, you can start to see some of the effects in Paul's arm where he really probably needed surgery. Gosh, 7 years prior to this, didn't want to lose his spot, powered through, still has the physique of a Greek god though, and didn't put up with a bunch of bullshit. I'm sure he's somebody you still hold in high regard.
You betcha. He didn't put up with any bullshit. But you know what? I worked with Paul many times on either side of the ball. Heel, baby face, switched around. I loved working with him because he's believable.
Right.
He's credible. He is safe. He was solid, but he was safe. And man, he looked, even with his body decimated from all that nerve damage, he still looks great.
Oh, he looks phenomenal.
You don't just look at him and the first thing you see is, well, that guy's got a ton of nerve damage.
No, he's jacked up. He's got muscles in places where other people's don't have places.
Well said.
Let's talk about him for a minute, because I feel like wrestling fans a lot have the conversation. Hey man, who's the best guy to never win the world title? And almost never do we hear Paul Orndorff's name. And I don't know if you were watching, so I'm going to ask. Back when he was having his feud in the WWF with Hogan, and they did that big stadium show, I think it was called the Big Event. A lot of people thought, man, this could be one of the top heels in the business. And he was a much better, maybe not a better promo. He was a great promo, but he was a much better wrestler than Roddy Piper, in my opinion. And when you saw, hey man, he can get really good matches out of Hogan and he looks great and he's a good promo against Hogan, I think a lot of people probably thought this guy's going to be in the main event of a WrestleMania against Hogan. And if it wasn't a babyface territory, perhaps could have been world champion. Did you see any of his stuff with Hogan in that era? Were you watching it at all or catching any?
No, I never got to see it, but I can imagine Paul's one of those guys that would make Hogan look like $1 trillion.
Yeah.
But it was also, heels only got so far. They never beat you never had the heel beat Warrior. You never had the heel beat Hogan. Your top baby faces were in that golden circle and unbeatable. So Paul probably went as high and as far as he could as a heel.
I just think it was criminally underrated stuff. And I think he should be in that conversation when people talk about one of the best to never be world champion, don't you?
Sure. Hell yes, absolutely.
Do you ever have conversations with him about his injury in regards to yours?
Oh yeah, we talked a lot. And then the atrophy is, very similar with both of us. I never started out with a body that looked like that. I mean, good Lord.
I'm not trying to be too personal, but was he giving you advice about what to expect or what to look out for or what to be wary of?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were kind of sharing it.
Right.
We're paralleled, we would compare notes and all that stuff. And hey, do you ever have a dull ache in your left shoulder? And, or does your, you just be walking along and your right leg go out from under you and all that.
Right.
And it was like talking to yourself. Because I guess the areas that were damaged were exactly the same. And the injury was pretty much the same. And we just both went, much longer than we should have. The reality is, look at this. He is pounding the piss out of Cactus.
Yeah. But you got to think Foley probably wanted him to. He probably said, lay it in. I want it to look real. And it is violent, man.
Oh, he thrives on it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The inability to kill this man is what got him over.
Is it true the story we've heard about when he took, I think it was one of his debut matches in WCW, he took a hellacious bump and he came through the curtain and you said something to him about, you haven't got any sense or something like that. And he said,
Jesus, Crazy Jack, you ain't got no sense. He said, no, Arn, I don't have any dollars.
Look at the fans. How into this are they?
Pretty much.
Because Barbarian, super believable. Obviously Vader is. Orndorff is an established top heel. Cactus Jack is just a spectacle. In this era, when you've got a special talent like Cactus on the roster, somebody who's willing to do literally anything, whatever it takes, and tells great stories, great promo, great psychology, all the things you would probably look for. But maybe he's not a matinee idol. Maybe he doesn't have Paul Orndorff's body. And WCW seemingly lets him slip through their fingers. Were you surprised that they didn't think he was a more bankable star? Because as great as his run is here, and I prefer his Cactus Jack persona over everything else, when he goes to the WWF, he reaches heights I don't think anybody in WCW management could have ever predicted.
Well, it doesn't matter what I think or what I saw in him or you saw in him. It would have been who was the boss at the time and what did he see in him.
Right.
And the fact that he didn't have a body He wasn't young. He wasn't a matinee idol. And that's what they, that they wanted. That's what they were looking for. When he went to WWF, they saw a way to take his inability to show pain and all that stuff and to create characters and off shots of the characters and different slants of that character to where it was just one dimensional. And WCW, hey, here's a guy that just won't stay down.
Right.
Well, unless you know how to push that and promote it, that's all you got. Consequently, as I said, you take that same guy and he's falling out of the ceiling and he's sitting up with his teeth through the roof of his mouth and he's going, have a nice day. Well, that's just brilliance. And that's the difference on how you create a character and how you don't.
We see we're getting started here. This is the finals of the United States Championship tournament. Originally, this was supposed to be for the #1 contendership. Now the winner goes home with the strap. Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat. Steamboat still got those dragon style scaled airbrush tights. I think that he rocked very briefly in the WWF. Man, Steamboat's one of those other guys who it just feels like he doesn't age, right? I mean, in a good way. He looks just like that now, like with a little can of Just for Men. He looks just like this today.
Yeah. Well, it's because he still works out every day,
right?
Takes care of himself. That's the main thing. It's, he eats probably healthy every day, and that's how you maintain that.
When you see two, very good wrestlers working a match like we're watching right now with Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat, what are you looking for that maybe we fans aren't seeing or don't even know to look for?
Okay, I'm watching the fans and they're watching a good wrestling match. In the back of their mind, some of them are waiting to see who's going to be the first guy to get this, disgruntled and punch a guy in the mouth.
Right.
And they're waiting on that. Right now they're just watching. It's a good wrestling match, but without some good versus evil, which is what the business is based on, it's not nearly as interesting. We'll see where they go with this. And it doesn't have to even be a cheap shot.
Is there?
Go ahead.
Can you tell us about match structure? I know that I shouldn't say I know. I imagine, so just based on the way you tried to set that up about who's going to take the first cheap shot, that the way you would structure a match for a heel and a baby face is totally different than if it's two baby faces like this.
Yep. That's a perfect chance to feature all the good stuff that both guys can do. You can just wrestle for a while. And the key to this, there's a point in that match to where you can build to just out of nowhere, a cheap shot. And it doesn't even have to be a cheap shot. It could be, Ricky could be, this headlock could just start to wear him down. They end up in the corner in the ropes or something. And as the referee breaks them, just out of desperation, Ricky just knocks Dustin's head off with a chop. It's not illegal. It's not anything, but it just sets the mode or the mood from what's to come now. Tempers are flaring, and then it becomes a different match.
Meltzer would recap this show by saying Saturday TV on 116 was the strongest in a long time. 4 very strong TV matches, a 6-man opener with Windham, Pillman, and Austin beating Scorpio, Armstrong, and Bad, which was a hot match, a very good Chris Benoit win over Marcus Bagwell, an even better brawl with Cactus and Orndorff, ending with Vader interference for the DQ, and climaxed by the U.S. Tourney Finals, where Dustin Rhodes beat Rick Steamboat by countout when Windham DDT'd Steamboat on the floor. Steamboat was really a master in this match. So of all the shows we picked to watch today for a watch along, we picked a good one. This has been a very good show. And I'm curious, when you hear a guy like Dave Meltzer say Steamboat was a master in this match, what's your reaction?
He's right. 100%. I don't agree with everything Dave says.
No, nobody does.
And he doesn't agree with everything I say. That's the beauty of the business. Take from it what you like. If you're a fan and you're critiquing stuff, that's fine. Watch what you want to watch. Watch what you like.
Right.
And the stuff that you don't like, guess what? Don't watch it.
Right. That's
all. And see, for me right here, I think those guys are too good. That, when I talked about rushing earlier, hurrying your way through something, that last sequence of slams, if they would have slowed down just a little bit, that wouldn't have looked nearly as sloppy.
One of my favorite quotes that came out after we lost Tracy Smothers last year was when he would work independence and he would be coaching young talent or trying to go over, hey, here's what we're going to do in our match sort of thing. He would say, all right, we're going to start out slow and then we're going to taper down from there.
That's an old timer's way to relax a young kid.
It's funny. I had a chance to catch up with Terry Funk once and we talked about wrestling today and blah, blah, blah. And eventually he said something like, my advice anytime I was working with somebody was go as slow as you can, literally. And when you think you're going too slow, go a little slower. How much of that is just the old school way of thinking about preserving your energy or your wind or, sort of keeping yourself separate from injury? And how much of it is the Jim Ross analogy where if you're a comedian, you don't rapid fire jokes. You've got to have a joke and then you've got to give the audience a chance to laugh before you tell the next joke. So you've got to have your moves mean something. And if they don't register and it's just joke, they're going to miss stuff and none of them matter as much. But if you slow down and you let it breathe, so to speak, now you can really tell a story with your match or get your big pop and go to your next joke.
That's correct. If you're going to tell a joke, get your facials in as you're working your way towards the punchline.
Right.
And when you hit the punchline, don't do anything. Wait for the reaction. Because if you move on to something else and you step on the punchline, then you just threw it away. You can't go back and get it. See, all this time, they've still just been working and nobody has punched or whacked anybody yet.
And that's the natural story. You're looking for someone to be clearly identified as baby face or heel.
And it's not really as you're going to make a heel out of anybody. But if I was, could advise the announcers now that I'm a lot more seasoned and I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I could see things. If they would have been telling this story that, hey, Dustin Rhodes is a tremendous young wrestler. He just doesn't have the time in that Ricky Steamboat does.
Right.
Ricky's just a veteran. He's seasoned. He's been there, done that with everybody. Everything Dustin's done, Steamboat did it a long time ago. And now you tell the story of why Dustin is getting out-wrestled, but in a legal way. So that when something happens, and I'm hoping that it will have some meaning.
Tell us about what you see with when you watch wrestling like this, and it's a good match, and you've got a referee. He's the third man in the ring. What are you looking for?
Him to be invisible.
There you go.
He's there to make you break. He's there to make a count and quickly on a false finish, dive in just like that's the finish. But mostly referees should just remain invisible until they're needed.
In this era, who were your favorite referees to work with?
Oh, Tommy Young, Nick Patrick, Pee Wee Anderson, probably from that era.
As we're watching the match here, Greg wants to know, what were gas and Zubaz prices like at the time? Of course, he's having a little fun with your gas station bit. Tell us a little bit about Zubaz, though. Was that a regular part of your wardrobe at the time?
Yeah, it sure was. It was acceptable. And Zubaz were about $12 a pair. And we wore them everywhere, through airports, everything. It was a trend. It was what was happening.
Were you also rocking the fanny pack at the time, or did you not give in to that craze?
What's that?
Did you rock fanny packs at the time?
No. Now, what I did wear, or I did use for, not wear, but what I did have for just a minute, and it was the wrong thing to do, was, do you remember those eel skin man purse zip up pouches?
I don't, but I'm going to Google it right now.
Yep. It was like eel skin, and you zipped it, and it would hold like just enough stuff, more than a wallet, but not quite as much probably as a pecker pouch.
That's what you called fanny packs, pecker pouches?
Yeah, that's correct.
Boy, we're going to have to use that from now on.
But the problem with that is I filled up gas one night. I had it sitting on top of the car.
Oh.
Got in the car, drove off, and who knows what happened to it. But all my valuables were gone. So I went back to a standard wallet, which I put in my front pocket, and I never lost anything again.
You still wear it in your front pocket now?
My wallet?
Yeah.
Yep. If I have a need to take it in somewhere, whatever that reason is, I just put it in my front pocket. It's not going to get gone that way.
We got lots of questions about this show in particular. And this is a fun one. Late to the Nitro Party says, we know the STF is devastating, but what other submission hold would Arn recommend in a street fight situation?
Good old front face lock.
Yeah, that's hard to beat.
Rear naked choke. Once a guy gets that sunk in, you can't get him off of you. He's behind you.
Ken can't help himself. He wants to know, if Arn had to face Van Hammer in a 60-minute Iron Man match or eat a double cheeseburger with cheese fries, what type of cheese would he choose?
You know what Colby cheese is?
I do.
You know what it smells like?
I do.
Like you've been digging in your butt, right?
Okay.
Stinks. I would rather melt down a half a gallon of that and drink it like a large water than do the aforementioned match.
Oh my God.
I don't think y'all get it.
Oh man, big ref bump. This is regrettable.
Nicely set up. Accidental.
Yep.
Totally.
And pay attention to what's coming. Big spill to the outside. Steamboat's laid out on the floor. We should probably track it here because we're going to get a little situation.
Steamboat hit the cement. That's Barry Windham. What's Windham doing out here? Barry Windham, and he's got Steamboat. Oh my God! He throws Steamboat head first into the concrete floor. He just knocked Steamboat cold. I don't think Rhodes or the referee saw it.
Doing a great job there on commentary, JR and Zabisco. But Steamboat, much like we saw way back when Jake the Snake gave him a DDT on Saturday night's main event, he's laid out on the floor, suffering a DDT loss here. Well, he didn't really lose because of that. He's going to count it out. Dustin Rhodes is going to be your new U.S. champion because Ricky's not going to answer the count. But the first time we saw Ricky take that DDT on the floor, he was knocked unconscious by Jake the Snake Roberts. A big old knot on his head. You can tell his body is lifeless. He had double black eyes. It was a scary scene. He's taking it again here. Not the same result with Barry Windham. Most of our listeners would assume, well, Jake the Snake's the master of the DDT. What's the magic behind taking a DDT on the floor, Arn?
Going flat.
Okay.
Don't try to do the flip bump. Just go straight down. Belly bump, straight down. As you'll see.
We'll take a look here.
That was well done.
Yeah. And you see, they've just shown the replay to Dustin. He had no idea. And he says, oh, my daddy taught me not to win matches like that. I want to win it fair and square. We're going to get to the bottom of this. So the idea is maybe he's going to give him a rematch because it's the right thing to do. And we're off the air and on to the next week. I got to tell you, man, I don't know what you expected coming in watching an old Saturday Night from 1993, but I thought this was a good show and it was fun watching it with you. What'd you think?
Yeah. I mean, in the key, I go back to the key to getting over in this business is having TV time, enough of it that you can tell your story, enough time that you can talk, and have enough match time that you can go out and tell your story. And these matches had all of that. So it was fun to go back and watch. Enjoyed it. Good choice.
It was good stuff. And we hope you guys had fun watching with us. Of course, you can watch along with us. You get all these shows early and ad free over at adfreeshows.com. Next week, we'll be back with you with another hashtag Ask Arn Anything. And then we're going to finish out the month of January talking about Royal Rumble from 2016. And gosh, that feels like it was just a couple of days ago, but in fact, it was 5 years ago. And, it's quite a moment. Triple H is going to win the Royal Rumble, last eliminating Dean Ambrose. Charlotte's going to be working with Becky Lynch for the Divas Championship. Kalisto will be in there with Alberto Del Rio for the U.S. title. New Day will be working with the Usos for the tag strap. Ambrose is in there with Kevin Owens for the Intercontinental Championship. And then there's a fatal 4-way match between Jack Swagger, Mark Henry, the Ascension, Damian Sandow, and Darren Young, and the Dudley Boys. Man, is it just me, or does 2016 feel like it was like last year, not 5 years ago?
No, it feels like a long time ago.
Well, 2020 didn't do us any favors there, but it won't be long before we're back. Hashtag Ask Arn Anything is next week. If you've got a question for Arn, it's easy to participate. Just throw us a follow on Twitter. It's at the Arn Show, and he is at the Arn Show on Twitter. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we are out of time. We'll see you next week right here for another Ask Arn Anything on Arn. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.